It's Spoilerin time, which means this week we are taking all the hard work we do on Cordkillers, like we do every week, and using the information about how to watch stuff and talk about it here on Spoilerin time. We'll be talking about Hannibal, episode 2 of season 2. Marvel assembled the WandaVision episode, so basically behind the scenes of WandaVision, and episodes 5 and 6 of Raised by Wolves. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Brian Brushwood.
Not only that, I have feelings, and you get to choose which kind of feelings you get to hear about. What are we starting with?
We're starting with Raised by Wolves, episodes 5 and 6. They are Infected Memory and Lost Paradise. We got a lot of backstory on Mother here, and that's mostly what I remember. Honestly, I know we got a lot about the Mithraics as well, but most of that was just a hunt across the world to try to track down Mother, and then the second episode try to trick her by trapping her in the bed where she was basically hallucinating her backstory.
Yeah, the first of those two episodes, Infected Memory, really touched me. It was not lost on me that we get to see, or the character Mother gets to meet her parent in a way, you know, and fall in love with him. As is later revealed, the shortest session she experiences in the simulator is 2 hours long. It's powerful stuff. And knowing, I think that episode did such an important job of showing how special and strange this experiment was, and how we can forgive an awful lot about things that are going off the rails. I was at one point moved to tears on episode 5. I thought it was really sweet and honest. Now, unfortunately, it means that it was also it was a lot of exposition and a lot of feelingsy stuff, whereas episode 6 was back to our side versus your side. I don't like killing monsters. I do like killing monsters.
Which of those two things do you not?
Kills monsters.
Did you not prefer? Because you kind of painted both of those as something you were not into.
Oh, no. I was deeply moved in episode 5 by the emotional content. However, we've talked about another sci-fi show, Devs. It got closer to that Devs energy in episode 5 than episode 6 did.
Yeah, I agree with that about the devs side of things, because it was about hacking. It was about treating Mother both as an object, where when she tried to kill him, he didn't hold it against her, right? It was just, that's just following her programming. That's my mistake. I missed something. Oh my gosh, the scene where he gives her the baby.
Yes.
And thankfully, the baby was not real. But even though I knew they wouldn't do it, up until the point she did it, I was like, they aren't going to do this. Are they going to do this? Oh my gosh, they're going to. Oh no, they didn't do this. It's not a real baby, but still, that was effective.
Behind the scenes, I am certain there was a debate down to the number of frames before they turned on red glowing eyes. Like, how fast can we real quick let people know this is a fake android robot baby?
Because the Campion here, the creator Campion, is a whole different person if he gave her a real baby to play with.
Also, I was moved to find out that his name was Campion and all of that. And it's like knowing...
I had forgotten in the first episode, they say, we'll name the last one after our creator. And then, that hit me. I'm like, this is him. This is the guy. Here he is.
I think it really does matter. It recontextualizes things to know just what a rarity we're not only are we... the first few episodes, you're led to believe they're probably doing this exact same battle, atheists versus believers, on a billion different planets. There's probably, there was probably a federation of them all happening. But by the end of episode 5, I got the strong sense of, oh God, no, Earth is totally doomed. And this is the only other shot we have. And this person, this one guy, had an insane moonshot. So, like, okay, hear me out here. I'm going to take a nuclear bomb and turn it into a great parent. bye. like it has me in a very forgiving mood
and
for a lot of stuff that goes wrong.
He treats her as an object that he is at fault for mistakes, but also cares cares deeply about her.
Well, and it's I thought it was implied that what he cares deeply about is his final gift to humanity, right? He's like,
I think the Mithraians. By the way, I think the Mithraians thought that their arc was kind of the final gift to humanity.
Yeah. Everyone's the gift to humanity of their own story, as the saying goes.
Yeah. I like the way they told the story. They literally had a voice in the background saying, oxygen levels even worse because time has passed. The world is even worse. Put on a mask because now not even your plants can save you. All of that was on the nose, but also I loved all of it. I thought it was really beautiful storytelling.
I thought there was a really interesting subplot still going on of Campion not wanting to kill, not wanting to eat meat, trying to get everybody to eat the fungus. And then Paul creating that crazy trap that's like, you know what? Fungus ain't going to do it. I'm sorry. We're going to have to kill these things, but at least we can kill them humanely. Like that's just a really interesting debate that I have a feeling is going to feed into the main storyline in a compelling way at some point.
Yeah. And they've not lingered too long on the Tally mystery. Like, obviously that's some kind of hallucinatory malfunction or whatever. And they keep alluding to, I mean, certainly they, both on the Android side of things, they allude to it in the form of some kind of malfunction hallucination, but also you definitely have what appears to be a human being of some variety, running around jumping on the Mithraic side.
And also we see in that second episode, the young girl Vita sees the drawing and has. Is that how the episode ends? Like something happens to the drawing.
It melts. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is that at least that moment at the end of that episode pulled this out of, it's not it doesn't seem like it's the androids hallucinating something.
Right. I mean, there's definitely something happening, but they've done a very good job of wherever they go. I don't feel like it will be unearned in the way that, for example, Lost took some turns that may have felt unearned. I feel like wherever they're leading with this felt earned.
Yeah. And I guess the other main storyline is Marcus and the person who we think must have raped one of the children that is at the camp, and instead of killing him, he decides to keep him as cannon fodder. That guy's head is in a big metal bucket, and he has an android that guides him around. That's just kind of dangling out there as a complication for next week, where we end with an ill-advised battle, I guess, because they don't actually defeat Mother in the hallucinatory chamber, and yet they decide to go ahead and attack the camp anyway because communications are out.
I do really like that they stated, it's, air quotes, a routine that will occupy her brain cycles and trap her there longer, sapping her of all her energy. They could have just left it as that, but instead they let us kind of see inside, android dreaming of electric sheep. It's a very real sexual attraction that she has for the original Campion, and I thought it was all. It was artful boning, which I enjoyed. I thought it was good. It was emotionally, it was emotional.
Yeah.
Well, and also I think that simulation pod is very interesting because in a mystery story like this, I feel like it gives us the most objectively untrustworthy narrator, because every time she sits down and says, "This is not made for you. Get out of here. You do not know what is going to happen."
I do like that there is, they put, it reminds me of the old days on this show when we would hit a button and it would say spoiler alert. It's like, it's just every time she gets in, where it's just like, viewers at home, trust this to your own will.
Yeah. No, it reminds me of every rental car I've ever plugged my iPhone into. This device is not necessarily supported.
Oh, yeah.
Anything else on Raised by Wolves?
One thing that I like between this pair of episodes is, I believe in episode 5, where Mother is talking to Father, she says some version of like, "I do not want. I am simply carrying out my plan." And at the end of her time in the simulation, I believe in episode 6, is her talking to whatever this virtual version of Campion Sturgis is, saying, "What do you want? What do you want? Tell me what you want." And she says that she wants him, and then I guess they have relations.
Yeah, there was also, I did think it was kind of a cool reinterpretation. What I think we're seeing thematically is what looks like a black and white situation, where both sides are drifting towards the center for different reasons. Obviously, we've got
Mithraics and the atheists.
Correct. We have atheists who are full on intending to masquerade as Mithraics just to survive, but instead falling in love during the simulation with this son, and to some extent, like, they know all the words and they know all the rituals, and now all of a sudden he's leading people or whatever, but now he's actually experiencing visions that appear to be from Saul. He's having, for lack of a better phrase, he's having literal religious experiences. And then meanwhile, the androids, when she says, like, "I'm thankful," and Father's confused, like, thankful to who? Like, well, our creator. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, "We're androids. We know for a fact we were created."
We have a literal creator.
Yeah, right.
Named Campion.
I like how I don't know if they're going to end up with some kind of mushy agnosticism by the end of it, but I do like that both sides are finding places to be uncomfortable as they drift towards some kind of center.
Well, what I like about what you're pointing out is this is less about the who's right and more about what helps them get through their day, I guess.
Yeah,
for lack of a better way.
Well, and we're far enough along in season 1 that we're starting to figure out, like, oh wait, everybody wants the same thing, and it would not shock me if there was some meeting of the minds and some version of getting along that happened. And Bryce has already seen it, and I'm not going to look at Bryce's face.
Oh, sorry.
All right, that is Raised by Wolves, episode 5 and 6 of season 1. Let's talk about Marvel Assembled. Technically, this is episode 1 of Marvel Assembled, but it is behind the scenes of WandaVision. This is something they're going to do for movies and TV shows, I think often in the off weeks. In this case, it's between the series finale of WandaVision and the season premiere of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I'll step right out and give my opinion first. I was pleasantly surprised. I thought I'd be checking my watch through most of this, and I don't think I checked my watch until maybe 25, 30 minutes into it. I was sucked in and engaged with what was less behind the scenes and more showing me what the actors thought of what they were doing. So there was behind the scenes in that I got to see, the black and white sets and color, and the fact that they brought the audience and all the care they put into replicating what things were really like in the period that they were emulating. But it was told from my point of view, it was told in an engaging way through interviews that I found fun to watch.
Tom,
congratulations to you, Tom. That's awesome. Just very happy for you.
Tom, I hated this with the white hot fire of 1,000
so
suns.
bad,
and I didn't
annoying.
hate it for what it was. I hated it
How?
for what it wasn't. This could have been good. Instead, it looked like every crappy DVD bonus extra featurette, and they all began with the same. Every single person. When I found out that I got the opportunity to work with the people who, and the thing about the MCU is it's so big, so dense, every frame of painting.
And none of it was ironic. I kept waiting for someone to be like, say, haha, I don't like it. They're good movies. They're big whole things, a big collaborative spirit, but it's definitely like you're making spandex punching things, like even for WandaVision, which is good. I just felt like I'm waiting for the joke. I wasn't in on the joke.
It felt so disingenuous and so dishonest. Things that would have been good. Like, they couldn't bring themselves. This thing was so sanitized, they couldn't bring themselves to say out loud that the reason Pietro's appearance was important was because Marvel bought Fox. We must not mention that and just act like it's just really interesting that this guy who, let's be careful, let's not mention mutants, let's not mention the fact that he was from a different franchise, let's not mention the crossover aspect, let's make this.
I mean, I don't have the same motivation of trying to bolster my hate for it behind this opinion, but I did think it was odd the way they treated the Pietro thing. And my interpretation as someone who actually enjoyed this and had a good time watching it was that it was because they didn't want to give something away, that they are holding a card regarding X-Men, and anything they said beyond what they said would give away what their plans are with that.
One of the interesting things that I didn't realize until we had talked a little bit before the show about this is I think that it's very strangely paced for being kind of very squarely about an hour. And it wasn't until I thought about that a little more that I realized, you know what they don't talk about in this making of featurette is the novel coronavirus COVID-19 at all. Something that definitely impacted the production of the show.
And you saw that in early segments, they have a crowd, right? They bring in a studio audience, and in later segments for later episodes, you see people with masks on set. Yeah. They missed an opportunity to interview Dick Van Dyke. They said, we talked to Dick Van Dyke about what it was like on the Dick Van Dyke set so that we could replicate. And there's some really good stuff, I thought, about how the care they took to replicate how they did it and use some of the same techniques and the same lighting. I would have liked more detail, and I would have definitely liked to have heard from Dick Van Dyke about that stuff.
Yes, they also talked about how unique and special it was that they had a live studio audience and did it like a play. What I would have given to see just 4 unbroken minutes of how you prep a show, a studio audience, explaining of what to expect and all that stuff. But they didn't give us any of that. Instead, literally the most interesting part of this whole hour-long featurette is when they interview the musicians, and half of their dialogue is like, what I like about 60s music is that it goes, ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Oh, and there's a tambourine.
I didn't like the interview with the musicians as much. I felt like that started to drag. That's when I started to check.
But it was also
it was the best part.
It was also like the most informative stuff of like here, like we actually had a musical motif, but it's a Marvel thing, so no one ever notices because they're good, not great. But you hear them all next to each other.
Pointing out the motif and how it was worked in was interesting. Otherwise, it was like, we took this song and we did it like that. I didn't find it as compelling.
Well, I definitely learned
basically, I feel
new.
like I watched an entirely different show than you guys.
No.
What I hunger for in these kind of things is something that transforms the way I look at it for the rest of my life. And the music segment is a good example of that, because once you hear that they centered all of the themes around those 4 notes, then all of a sudden you can't unhear it, and it makes it a richer, deeper
So you didn't
experience.
notice that before?
No, I did not. And learning why they did that was great. And to a certain extent, and every time they, when they were talking to the VFX folks, and they're like, okay, well, let's talk about an aperture grill and CRT lines and all that stuff, and that's how you like all of that. And then every time they showed a multiple wipe as they built composited stuff, fascinating. All of that stuff was great. Every time a segment began with, when I got the phone call, I was just like, all right, well, here's 30 seconds I could check out. So, yeah.
Well, I'm glad I went first because otherwise I would have just said, well, I kind of liked it. Yeah, it's never fun to be the person who likes a thing that the other two people hate because it's always more fun to hate on something than to try to defend it.
No,
I
I genuinely am glad that you liked it, Tom. This, don't laugh.
I'm glad for you, Tom.
I'm glad
you have bad taste.
I'm glad that we have a litmus test that shows that this is for somebody. Because I mean, we all can kind of get lost in this. Like, we all know different things about production, and this is aimed probably for people who know who are not.
I
even
think if you listen close,
casting and stuff,
we're not that far apart in our opinions of it. It was our expectations of what we wanted out of it that differed.
That's true. Like, I don't think anything from this Marvel Studios assembled thing is intended to make headlines or break any news.
I definitely went into it expecting episode 1 of The Mandalorian behind the scenes, and I got more than that. So I think that's why I was pleased.
Yeah, I definitely 3 times considered whether or not it would be a better story if I justified why I stopped watching halfway through. But instead, I stuck through the whole thing hating it.
All right. Anything else on Marvel Assembled WandaVision? All right, let's talk about Hannibal, episode 2 of season 2, Sakizuke. This is our second course, and they are continuing to investigate the same crime from the first episode, the discarded bodies in the Pantone shades, and we get to see Hannibal sort of slightly mislead them while Will from prison points them in the right direction. And there's a bit of a race where Hannibal gets out to the barn first, and we find out later ends up convincing the guy that he should be part of his own painting, and Hannibal can help him by killing him and putting him in his painting.
Convincing.
This was the first episode of this show that I viscerally twisted in my seat.
It was so gruesome.
When the guy got up at the beginning, you mean?
And the stitches I
was like, this was on primetime television? Because I did exactly the same thing. I literally turned away half.
And it was it was a really, really long segment. I mean, I think this show has been pretty good of, if there's gruesome moments, it's very short and it's a little pop. That was so prolonged. To good effect, but good God.
But also, I think earned because I was all in. Also, I can't remember if we had caught a glimpse of the mosaic at the end of the last episode or not, but there was definitely that transformative moment. It wasn't until I saw the photograph on a piece of paper that I realized it's an eye.
Yeah.
He made an eye, and I was like, that's good. And that moment where Hannibal just reveals himself and just says, I love your work. I was like, that was so bold, so good, so strong. And you're right. I'm glad that they made it totally clear that Hannibal did his Hannibal trick, had some conversation. The guy agreed. Okay, so you're going to, wow, yeah, you're right. This is how it should end and all that. And then, you got the, cannibal food porn moment in there. But
it did confirm, I think it confirmed, just in case there was any ambiguity, that Hannibal Lecter is the copycat killer.
Oh, sure. And has been, eating and serving all of these people.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, though, so we have 2 moments that have a little bit of symmetry. We have Hannibal's therapist refusing to see him anymore, and her justification is because I catch glimpses between the threads of that human suit you wear. And I no longer feel safe, or whatever it is that she says.
That felt carefully calculated by her as a character, right? She calculated that if she didn't stop, she would either become part of his world or a victim of his world, but her only way to escape would be to go to him and risk being in his control at his office long enough to convince him that she wasn't a threat and she would stay not a threat if he left her alone. I mean, it just felt like walking a tightrope And a big gamble.
And we see that at the end when he shows up to kill her, and whoopsie doodle, she's off the grid and out of the picture. But meanwhile, parallel to that moment, we see Will actively putting on a human suit. Like, he now has his suspicions and his understanding. Like, I think Hannibal caused all of this. I think and he's like, what tools do I have? I can't use Jack. I can't trust Hannibal. Nobody else will listen to me. Is it Grace? Is that her name? His friend.
It's Hettian Park.
Beverly Katz.
Beverly Katz.
Agent Katz.
Yeah, Agent Katz. And he says she needs help. And he basically says, I have a price. And the price is quite simply, just imagine if I'm not guilty and see whatever you see. And he
asked her, it's even better than that from the way I understood it was, declare bankruptcy.
Right.
Yeah. Let's start
Forget
over.
everything you know up till now.
Right.
Yeah.
And then go fresh. If you find new evidence that I did it, that's fine. But just start over. Start fresh.
Well, and so even though objectively Will is the disenfranchised character, locked in a cage, he gains two powerful allies. One actively boots on the ground with the FBI. The other, a mysterious chaos figure who has vanished off the grid, but who flatly states, I believe you, before she vanishes. That's not a lot to work with, but I think it's enough to keep hope alive and to keep him working on the case in his mind.
I couldn't tell if Dr. Du Maurier intends to help him. I don't think so.
I spent this
I think she knew that he might lose hope, and this was the only thing she could give him was hope. And so that's why she leaned in and said, I believe you. And that it may not be the last we see of Gillian Anderson, but at that moment, I think her intention is, this is all I have.
And it's enough. It's enough. It is a self-contained, complete gift that she gives to him, which is, you're not crazy. And that's enough to hold on to.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we see any more of Gillian Anderson. I think that was her getting killed off the show, personally.
Huh.
Yeah, you're probably right. I get that sense as well. And that would be fine, because she walked that tightrope of like, if I don't go and tell him that I'm leaving, he will find me. But if I tell him, that buys me enough time to bail.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm certain she had been doing, her homework ahead of time.
Of course.
Going into stuff.
Murder is illegal. Okay, good to know. All right.
Also, just quick side note. Man, as gross, how I think this vignette was the best we've seen from Hannibal so far. This mosaic art piece, as gross and awful and weird as it was amazing. Whoever thought of that is, I'm glad they're writing scripts and not out in cornfields.
The Pantone arrangement of skin tones, right? The sort of like the arrangement of skin tones was genius, and Hannibal's edit of it, right? Because what happens is somebody who is, too tolerant of heroin wakes up, tears off their skin at the beginning, makes Brian and I shudder, and runs away, ruining the artwork. But Hannibal says, oh, no, you just have a spiral. But if we put you in the middle, it's an eye. See?
It's what God is looking at, and he sees you. And
so genius. So good.
I also I wish I had written down, but I remember this episode specifically has 3 really, really, really long build-up sequences that all hit. All of them were major moments in this episode for me. I think the first one was probably the veneer, and I think the second 2 were with Hannibal possibly. But I just remember walking away from this episode being like, though, that's a lot of really long, big, droning sequences, and all of them worked really, really well to capture all the tension that's happening right now.
We did spend a fair amount of time with Jack Crawford just kind of generally being malcontent without any real direction. But maybe that's all we need to get is a bit of that texture, and just to know that he's mostly certain, like he's uncomfortable. He knows something's wrong, but doesn't know if it's him or the world. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think, I feel like Jack Crawford's character is a cork adrift right now, and somebody's going to grab it and use it at some point. But for now, we just need to know it's still out there bobbing around.
It was an extraordinary episode.
Yeah, it really was.
I was really blown away.
And I called it. I think I said this last week, but I think it's true. This season really feels like they are leaning into we're going to be very, very aesthetics focused and be a very, very visually pleasing show. I mean, season 1 looked very nice and clean, but this episode, I mean, they're really going all in on the editing and the compositing stuff.
You're absolutely right, but also pleasing is such a hard word to apply to some of those scenes.
Yeah. You know what? For the first time,
inspired.
For the first time, we get to see Hannibal use his crime-solving power and how it looks to him compared to Will Graham. Because Will, we always have this kind of like going back in time. This is my design and all that stuff. Whereas he just leans in and smells. It's how he smelled the encephalitis to begin with. But we don't really see that. We're told that. But in this case, he leans in and suddenly he's there in that fresh cornfield.
We did see him smell Will. He did smell Will very early on. He smelled his head.
That's correct. But we didn't see him transported anywhere the way we do visually. Yeah, we got the equivalent of his woo effect.
In my memory, he said corn, but he never did. Right? We just see him amidst the corn and know that that's what he's smelling. It's so well done.
I believe the conversation right before then, they mention in the crackliquet or whatever it is they said, maybe, and they're like, I don't know, maybe something got picked up in there. And then he's like, well, I'm glad at least the audience understands it. Now look away. Corn.
Oh, I'm glad you haven't found anything. That gives me an advantage. Excellent. All right. That is Hannibal, episode 2 of season 2. Thanks everybody for supporting us. Patreon.com/Cordkillers. You get these episodes a little bit earlier if you do so. So we really appreciate you supporting us here and on Cordkillers. Next week, the premiere of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episodes 7 and 8 of Raised by Wolves, and episode 3 of Hannibal. We'll spoil you then.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.